Hello everyone, this is Waldorf,
And Statler.
and today we're going to be talking about Oathmark.
Battles of the Lost Age.
Yes. As you can see in the bottom right corner, this is a new, well, it doesn't tell you that, but it's a game, it's from Osprey Games.
Yeah.
It is another rank and flank miniature system.
It came out earlier this year. Everything kind of got slowed down because of COVID. It's published by Osprey in partnership with North Star, who sells all their figures, which you've probably been seeing coming out in the last 2 years.
Yes, the miniatures were out long before the game.
Yeah. So we'd been waiting for these rules to come out just for curiosity because of what we consider kind of dearth of rank and flank systems in the marketplace. So this game kind of sits along with Kings of War and the Ninth Age.
Correct.
As alternatives to playing rank and flank fantasy, to play games of fantasy using fantasy figures, as opposed to skirmish-based games like Lord of the Rings or Age of Sigmar. The dearth that falls in that range, which is very popular right now.
Yeah, so this is like I said, brand new game system. It uses D10s, which typically is kind of a no-no, except you're not using handfuls of D10s.
No, for us.
Correct.
Yeah.
But like I said, you're not using handfuls of D10s, which is okay.
Right.
Other than that, it is unit sizes. We'll talk about that, I guess, in a bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What else overall? It's a you go, I go activation. You move a unit, I move a unit. You move a unit, I move a unit.
Right.
It's back and forth. There's once everything is moved, then that's the end of a turn.
Right. So it's not my side moves, then your side moves, which is much more common in gaming.
Correct.
So the turns are more interactive in the context of going back and forth.
Right. And trying to think what else overall we need to point out. I think that's probably about it for overall.
Yeah, for the moment. Then we're gonna go a little bit through the stat lines to get an idea, and then some of the special rules. And then there's a very in-depth QRG if you're interested on the website, which we're gonna use as kind of a guide to talk about how the system works, and then we'll end up with our comments.
All right. So this is what the stat line looks like for a unit. As you can see, it's a human soldier. He's got A, M, F, S, D, whatever. Anyway, so he's got an activation. The activation is what he needs to roll on a D10 normally on
or more D10s.
One or more D10s, correct.
Yeah.
You need to roll this number or above. Like his activation's a 5. He needs to roll a 5 or above to get his activations. Typically, the way it works is you roll 2 dice in most situations. And as long as one of those is 5 or above, you get to activate, or you get your activation fully. If you do not roll your activation, doesn't mean you just sit there. It means you can only take what they call a simple action, which is a move, maneuver, shoot. You cannot charge into combat with that. The other thing it does is if you do make your activation, you actually get 2 actions.
Right.
Which can be a maneuver and a shoot, maneuver and a move, just a couple different things.
A move plus a little bit extra move, etc.
A double move, correct.
Right. It is also your morale level of your units whenever you have to take morale checks. So
that A is a very important number.
So
and you pay for it. I mean, yeah, anyway.
Yes. As far as points.
Yes.
And how the points are figured out, it's clear that it's very important.
Yes. M is your movement value, how far you move in a single action.
In inches.
Correct. So like you can see, human soldier moves 6. He moved, you fail your activation, you can move 6. You pass your activation, you can do a move. You move 6. Your second move is only half the distance. So 6 and 3, you go 9.
Right.
F is your fight value. You add this to your modifier. Add this to modifiers to see if you cause a wound to your enemy.
Right.
The one thing there isn't is there's not a I roll a hit, you roll a save, or I don't roll a hit, then a wound, and then you roll a save. It's just I roll a hit, it causes a wound if I roll
Right.
it. Same thing with shoot skill.
Same thing, except it's when you're using bow fire or war machine fire as opposed to close combat.
Correct.
Then you have your defense, which is you actually compare your fight or your shoot value to the defense, and that determines if you get a hit or not. Or I shouldn't say that determines what you need to roll to get a hit, and you modify that by different factors, which we'll get to later.
Right. All factors aside, a human soldier fighting a human soldier compares his 2 to the 9, so he has to roll a 7
It's a difference of
to
7.
cause a wound.
Right, so 7 or up.
Right. 7 or better.
On a D10. Then you have your combat dice, and that is how many dice you roll for that particular model in the unit. So, and above, it's a human soldier, and it's basically telling you you get 1 combat die for each soldier.
Right.
And we'll get more into the limitations on that later. You then have health, and that's basically how many hits you can take before you have to take a model off, or mark a wound in the case of a larger beastie or big gribbly.
Right.
So in the case of a human, 1 wound, you remove a figure. You then have your special rules, which we'll get a little more into, that apply to any given unit or creature. And then you have your base size, and the base sizes are all in groups of 25. So it's 25 by 25 for most infantry. It's 25 by 50 for cav, 50 by 50 for large infantry, and then they say 50 by 100 or larger, so I guess for really big griblies. So
yeah, the way the rules work, yeah, it's yeah. Anyway,
so what they do say is because you have a standardized formations in this game, you don't go from like line to column to skirmish and all that. You occupy so much frontage. But they kind of tell you in the rules if your individual basing doesn't quite match, what you can do is just have slightly larger like movement trays so you can cover the right frontage.
yeah, that way you can use your 20 millimeter guys on it.
Right.
In this game, because there's not, like you just said, there's not the fiddly lining up which models line up with which models.
Right.
It doesn't
it is
exist
unit.
in this
It
game.
is unit versus unit.
It's a unit-based game. So good.
Yep.
Moving on. And these are the special abilities that the units have.
Right. There's like 4.5 pages of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of stuff. I mean, there you can see the descriptions are for most of them are like one line to tell you what they do. Aimed fire gives you the ability to not shoot. In this game, you must shoot at the closest unit. Aimed fire gets you around that.
Right.
So
most of these don't
of
apply to that many things, but you do have some.
Correct.
There's things that affect shooting. There's things that affect movement. There's things that affect combat. There's things that affect morale and command, and being able to see. Like there's basically 3 size classes in the game, and standard, large, and enormous. Then you have like on this page, shielding is being there's a lot written on that one. It's probably the one that's the most common that we've noticed.
Correct.
And it's basically troops that have a shield have a better defense ability.
They can reduce their own offensive capability to boost their to
reduce the opponent's offensive
ability.
Yeah.
So correct. Anyway, it's just kind of a little trade-off thing they can do, and a couple more abilities. That's about it.
Right.
Now, as far as spells go, with characters, there's a general spell list, and then there is a spell list for each race.
Right.
Spells don't seem to be overpowering.
Each has 8.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
You actually count them?
I did a count. Yeah.
Okay. They don't seem to be overpowering. The way that works, real quick, is if you have a 2nd level caster, when he activates, he can try to cast. For example, the one up here is the courage spell. He's 2nd level, so he uses 2 d10s. If either one of those is a 6 or better, his spell casts. If he's a 3rd level, he gets to use 3 d10s. All it needs is 1 to be a 6 or better. So, very simple thing. There's no counter spelling. He's not rolling to cast a spell. You're rolling to stop him.
Right.
That doesn't exist in this game. Although there is a spell, as a general spell called Dispel, which knocks down anything he's done.
Because most of the spells basically just take an effect and they stay effective until they're dispelled.
Correct.
So you can dispel them at any point in time. In theory, on my active phase, I could use my mage and cast a spell, and then on my opponent's active phase right after mine, they could turn around and dispel the spell right away.
Before it
actually did anything that mattered, for example.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for that kind of stuff. So I think we're going to hit into the QRG thing.
Not quite.
Oh, you have more you want to see?
Yeah.
What do you want to see?
You want to talk about the different armies?
Okay. Let's talk about the different armies.
Yeah.
Considering this page isn't advancing, but it is in the recording. It's not for us.
Okay.
Like here on this page, we have the Orc Soldier.
Right. So right now there's dwarves, orcs and goblins, humans and elves in the game. There's probably going to be at least one more army released in the not too distant future with a new army book. The game doesn't really follow. It doesn't have the lore of some of the other systems where, this is an orc and this is what you do and this is all you can build, and have really complicated army structures. Basically, you can play it in one of two ways. You can build your own little country, and you can actually have other people in your country as allies, and you can take the troop types. And we're not going to get into detail on that, but
you can mix and match it.
So you can mix and match if you wanted to, yeah. Or you can just say, I'm just going to be pure or whatever. I mean, we tend to be the pure bloods ourselves, so
Right.
And as long as you're using the points, you can take pretty much in that case whatever you want. The idea is everything is supposed to be balanced point wise, so you don't have to have a minimum of number of this before you can take that.
Right.
So in theory, using that style, you could just show up with nothing but characters.
Correct.
Which you would lose, but you could do that.
Yeah, that's one thing about this game is characters there's like three functions for characters. There's one where it's a command benefit.
Right.
There's a couple characters that are commanders. They're really good. They give you a +1 die to people that are around them when you're rolling for activation or morale. So instead of rolling 2 dice, you're rolling 3.
Yep.
Very important. Then there's another kind called a champion. He fights a little bit. If he's in a unit, he really does not add your. You get to roll 1 special die, which has the potential to do more damage.
It can add an additional wound.
It does
to the
2
opponent
wounds. It does +1 wound.
Yeah.
If it wounds.
Right.
And then the characters and that doesn't really. He doesn't have a better chance to hit. He adopts the units at a chance to hit, and that's it. Now, some characters can fight on their own, but from what I've seen, most will get owned by a unit.
Just because they don't have enough attack dice.
Correct.
Now, there's some magic items that help along with all that, but still, they're not. You don't have options to mount characters on big monsters yet, so
right.
Most of the time you do want them in units. You also have a command ability for certain types of characters where they can command multiple units. So if you activate that character, not only do you get to move his unit, you might have a command 1 or a command 2. You can move 1 or 2 additional units.
Right. And in that case, you could go 3 times before your opponent goes.
So you get 3 things going before they go. Then you have mages, which are another type of character, and their whole purpose is to cast spells.
Right.
So.
And then again, mages you don't want in units because it requires an activation for the unit, and if you cast a spell, that's the unit's action.
Right.
So it's tying up your whole unit so you can cast a spell.
Well, it
might be okay with archers, but
with archers might not be bad. It's just a question of if you get a simple activation, you're going to have to make a decision which way you want to go.
Correct. Whether you're going to cast this. Well, did we ever decide? No. Simple activation does not let you cast based on what we read. Remember?
Yeah. Right.
If you fail your activation roll, you can't cast.
Yeah.
So there is that.
But it makes you much more survivable because there's between the shooting and the spells, guys walking by themselves may not last very long.
Right. Now, there is the rule, of course, they have to shoot the closest target, But there's a special ability that some people have, aimed fire,
Right,
that lets them ignore that
right,
and
right.
shoot past it. Ranges are not, spell ranges are unlimited. I think I didn't think I ever saw anything that was not unlimited. And bow fire
I think
is,
there was a couple that had some stuff, yeah,
did they?
like eight
Okay,
inches or whatever, like a flame breath or something. But yeah,
right,
but generally the attacks are unlimited.
right. And meanwhile, like bows shoot 20 inches in
Right.
general. So you, even though you are vulnerable out by yourself, it takes a while.
And then there is
It's going to take
also
some effort.
line of sight rules. So units cannot see through one another if they're the same size, or you can't see through units the same size as you or larger.
Correct.
So there's that that allows you to hide stuff behind your
Right.
lines. Although there are things that have abilities to shoot over things. I mean, there's all kinds
Yeah.
of
Like
abilities.
mages do have an ability called fire over. And if they are within, I think it's
3 inches.
3 inches of a unit, like their own unit, they can fire over that unit like it's not there.
Right.
So there's little things around to help stuff like
So
that.
generally speaking, the characters in the game are buffs, and they buff in different ways. Either through magic or through command or minor combat. They don't win the battle all by themselves.
Correct.
No,
Although if you,
no hero hammer here.
if you if you do have one of the better combat warrior guys, technically he could take on small units
Yes,
and do okay.
sure,
But he would be vulnerable.
right,
It's what it comes down to. Much more so than in a fantasy battle game.
right.
To ninth age, or I've never played Kings of War enough to. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's been a long time, so I don't recall what the characters'
their
effects were
characters are
there.
stronger than these rules, but they're still not ninth
Okay.
age. But yeah,
All right, so that's kind of like an orc soldier stat line. You can see there. Oops. Yes, you can orc soldier stat line is there. They have a lower activation. Their activation is a 6, but they're a little bit tougher in general, I think, than most. Oops, did I went too far?
yep. They have a better.
There's
They have like
humans.
1 pip of movement. They have a better movement. They have a lower pip of, for example, of activation.
Activation, which is a big one.
Yeah,
And the other thing is they have a couple extra special abilities than most humans. Most humans have one ability,
depends what they're armed with.
depends on what they're kind
The
with, and
the
then
troops themselves are from between the armies are somewhat generic. They
right,
all have the same kinds of troops: spearmen, swordsmen, archers, rangers,
line
line
breakers.
breakers, which are like the elite infantry. Um, the Most have some kind of cavalry. Some have, like humans, have 2 different kinds of cavalry.
Yes,
Goblins have one.
dwarves have none.
Dwarves have none. They have different types of large monster units and different units, and you have some generic large monsters that anyone can use.
Yes,
So it gives you some flavor. The stats, when you look at them, they look very, oh, it's only a pip here or a pip there. It doesn't seem like much until you actually see it on the table, and it's because you're not just rolling one die; you're often rolling dice in multiples. So that little one all of a sudden gets multiplied times 5 or times 4 or whatever, and it ends up making a difference.
it does. Though I that was one of my bigger concerns was that, but the like you said, the single pips do make a big difference.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see what we've got. Next, we have kind of the step through the game.
Yeah.
Um,
So we actually pulled this off of the Osprey website. So if you're interested, you can just go to their website, and in their download sections, they have this detailed quick reference guide. It's not very quick, it's just a reference guide. In reality, the rules themselves are pretty straightforward. The mechanics are pretty straightforward once you get it.
yes.
And if you were to run a game of this, I really believe you could just print out these reference sheets with new players and you could get by as long as one person knew the rules.
Yes, as
Yeah,
long as somebody knew the rules.
yeah,
So, what you have is the reference sheet. We start with initiative. Each
right.
each player rolls 2 dice. The highest side gains the initiative. The When they say each dice roll 2 sides, you're rolling one die as your primary, a second different colored die as your secondary. Basically, in effect, gives you they call it the champion dice for the odd colored one.
Yeah,
but it's in case the first one's a tie, then you go to the second one,
Right.
rather than
So
waiting and re-rolling.
so it kind of turns into a percentile. So if you both roll two
Yes.
dice and both of you roll ones on your primary die, but the first guy rolls a 2 on a secondary, and the other guy rolls an 8, well, 18 beats 12, so
Right.
he gets to go first.
Correct. Yeah, it ends up being a percentile.
Right.
Exactly. And then that's the player who goes first that turn.
Right, and you roll it every turn. There's also a random effects table if you ever roll doubles.
Yeah, if you roll doubles on yours, a random effect. If you roll double on yours, you get a random effect. If all four dice are the same, then they have what was it, a catastrophic
event or something.
Yes, yes. Anyway, they're just flavorful things you can put in there. It's an optional rule, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to play that. Well, you don't ever have to play that.
We didn't use it when we play tested.
Yeah, correct. Next, we have activation. Once you've determined who has initiative, the player who has initiative picks a unit, tries to activate it. Typically, that's 2 dice. There are things that can affect a unit, like if it's lost every unit that you build has what they call an officer.
Right.
And the officer is the guy in the middle of the front rank. You use him for line of sight. And he, as long as he's there, gives your unit a bonus die to activate. You don't pay anything extra for him. He's just
part of the unit, which I like.
Yeah. Now, if you buy a character and the character goes in the unit, he replaces that guy.
Right.
So.
And you can only ever have one character in a unit. You can't
stack characters.
In a unit.
Right.
So normally you'd roll your 2 dice and said if you don't have your champion, you roll 1. Maybe you have your general officer around. You might roll 3, and if you get your number, you get to fully activate with that unit, and you get 2 actions, and those actions, which we'll get to, you can do
right
that.
There, yeah. Each unit takes an activation, which is a move, a maneuver, and you can see that's a pivot, a wheel, about face, or shoot is an action, special abilities such as
casting spells.
Yeah. And then there's, like you said, simple action if you fail.
If you fail, you do a simple action, which is
and it tells you right there, maneuvers, move actions, provided it doesn't move into contact, and shooting attacks are all simple.
Is interesting about these rules is that most systems, wheeling or pivoting is part of the movement, and you measure it as part of it. This is different than it's its own action.
Correct.
So you would wheel or you would pivot, and then you'd move straight ahead, or you'd move straight ahead, and then you would wheel or you pivot, or back up, and you can back up at half speed,
or sideways,
at half speed. Yeah.
Yep. Next thing we do is we talk a little bit about obstructions in the game. I mean, they're pretty straightforward. You have all ground. If it's rough ground, all movement counts double.
And an interesting thing, unlike a lot of systems, to set up your table, you actually do it. It's part of the scenario. And a common one, for example, is each side picks 3 pieces of terrain, and they can be whatever.
Up to 3.
Up to 3, I'm sorry. And they can be whatever you want them to be, and you designate what they are. So you can say, I'm going to take 3 woods, and I'm going to make them all difficult terrain.
Right.
And you place them on the battlefield wherever you want them to go, and your opponent does the same thing. You go back and forth. So there's not a set rule that says woods always does this, water always does this.
Correct.
You designate it as part of the system.
Yeah. And there you can see woods block line of sight. This one you cannot shoot through woods.
Right.
They block line.
Well, they do standardize observation and how terrain works.
Based on what you call it, correct.
Yeah.
Combat. When you come into combat, you place units flush against each other. They tell you to line up your officers in both units so that which means
if you can.
Which in effect means that if there's room, you hit a unit and you kind of slide over to match up to him.
Right.
Representing the fact that, half your unit's not going to stand over there on the left-hand side of you and watch you fight. They're all going to pile in.
Right.
Next thing you do is you determine the dice for the combat. You take the combat dice value for a single figure in the front rank, and you multiply it by how many figures you have in the front rank.
Now, the maximum number of figures you can have for large infantry, for regular infantry is 5, or cavalry,
Correct.
and for monstrous, I believe, is 3.
And you can only have 5 dice you can only use 5 dice in a combat.
You're always capped at 5.
Yeah, there's never more than 5 dice.
Can be less, but there can never be more.
Correct. And that's pretty much as far as calculating the number of dice. Then you've got to figure out your target number from the chart over here on the side.
So first you do the comparing the fight value versus defense value that gives you your initial target value. Like in our previous example, we talked about a human, 2 versus 9 would be a 7. Then you modify it by these different combat modifiers to add to that hit number or deduct from that hit number.
Now, one thing that I did not like, just real quick, it was this chart. This chart is not real clear
Of when you apply it
of
to
which unit you're
the
applying
defending
to.
or the
But
attacking
but
unit.
once you give it a little bit of thought, okay, having an additional full rank should make it easier to be hit, so it applies to the reducing the die roll needed to hit.
Right.
Attacking in the flank should be a benefit to the attacker, so therefore you figure that's what that means.
Right.
Anyway, and then there's just, like I said, you apply all these modifiers to your die roll. If you roll above your target number, you caused a wound.
Yes.
And then they also have the ability to do additional wounds if you roll much higher than the target.
Yeah, if you beat your target number by 5, you get 2 wounds, and if you beat it by 10, which we didn't see that possible, but I think you have to play with some of the big monsters for that to happen.
It may be there somewhere.
Yeah.
And I guess it could happen. There's spells that reduce like toughness or whatever
Right.
defensive value on units, and if you got hit by enough of those, your defensive value can go enough down for it.
Both sides roll their dice, and then the side that causes the most wounds is the winner, and that's it. They then have a decision to make. They can either fall back 1 inch, or they can make the loser fall back between 1 and 6 inches, up to the winning player. Then both sides have to take morale checks if they've taken any losses. And the modifiers are kind of there.
Yep.
If you fail a morale check, you don't automatically run away. If you're in good order, you go to disorder status. If you're already disordered, you're in big trouble, because if you fail it then you pick up your unit.
Right.
So a very different concept on how units run away.
Correct. And then you do pull off casualties in this game.
And so like a standard infantry unit could be anywhere from, in theory, 1 to 20 models are capped.
They are capped at 20.
And they would be 5 wide, by multiple ranks. And then as they take casualties, they stay on the table until they're eliminated, or they fail the morale check.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also cascading morale in here. So the one guy is eliminated, disperses everybody within,
I think it's 6 inches.
I think it's 6 inches. That's what they can morale check. So they could become disordered, or if they're already disordered, they could run away themselves.
Right. The other interesting thing is if you push your enemy back, which you did to me, you make your enemy push back after a combat. You push me back 6 inches. Well, if in backing up 6 inches, I bump into my own unit, that unit has to continue back up as well. Right. So it maintains an inch away from me after I move my 6 inches back. But no, just an interesting concept. The shooting, you check line of sight, range, and priority. Priority being, in most cases, you have to shoot the nearest enemy.
Which you have a special rule,
You determine your target die. You determine your combat dice. Same way, dice are capped at 5. And you roll your hit based on the modifiers over here. There's the ranges of weapons. You can see much shorter than what you're used to in 9th Age.
In some systems, yeah.
And maybe some other systems, depends on what you've got. And you apply your wounds, and the opponent takes a morale test.
Right. So it works exactly the same as the close combat, with the exception is only one side's doing the attacking.
Correct. And there is a bonus. Your morale, it's harder to panic you from shooting than from combat.
Right.
There's an adjustment that's in your favor if it's a shooting attack that's doing the damage. Artillery kind of works the same way. it hits all artillery, kind of fires somewhat the same way,
Yeah,
right?
they're all the same.
It's all
Yeah,
based on the number of ranks you're shooting at
right. So they're more effective
for how
against
many dice you have.
larger formations than they are against shallower formations.
Yes, and it's all based on the number of
Right.
and by more effective, it's the number of
Because
dice.
you keep adding, you add a die per rank, basically.
Right. Again, capped at 5.
Yeah.
Although they do get
And if you have shooting, it actually, um, every rank you add also increases your chance of hitting your opponent by
correct,
increasing your
causing a
hit number.
wound.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, you can see on the chart more. If the units are enormous, you get +2 dice,
Right.
and that's just makes them more effective against monsters.
Right.
Although monsters typically have better
Defense
defense
values, so they're
values,
hard.
so it's harder to wound in the
It's
first
harder to
place.
wound, and their cover doesn't matter for artillery in this game. It matters for regular archery, but not for artillery. You can shoot guys in the woods and the.
Yeah, although I think we may have done that wrong.
Oh, okay.
I think we need to go back and look at that.
The,
That was one of the things I think may have been an effect for some reason. No, because anyway, whatever. Morale. We talked about morale already.
right.
Disordered units are -1 to all activation rolls. So if you normally need a 6, now you need a 7.
Mhm.
No big deal. +1 to their
And
target
how
number.
you become undisordered is you just have to roll a successful activation.
Correct.
If you
And
fail the activation, bad things happen.
no,
Hmm.
if you're disordered and try to activate,
You stay
you
disordered.
just stay disordered.
Yep.
You have to activate to get the disordered
Right.
off you.
Yep.
But of course, the round you get the disordered off you, you can still only take a simple action.
Yes.
Your primary action supposedly is to get reordered,
Right.
if you want to look at it that way. And there's your cascading panic. If a unit that comes with 8 becomes broken, everyone within 8 must make a
Oh, 8,
morale
not
test
6. Yeah. But the
with no
big thing is
modifiers.
being disordered is very risky because that means people are going to try to target that guy because that's how
Yes,
you get rid of units is
Yep.
making a disordered unit fail their morale.
correct. Failing a morale test while you're disordered is
Yeah.
very bad, as I saw.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the rules. Now, the I guess the other thing to point out is what you mentioned earlier. The winner of the combat decides whether to back up or push the enemy back. The big concept that you have to get used to in this game, if you're used to playing a lot of other games, is there is no hit a unit, overrun, wipe it out, get through the lines, whatever. You hit a unit, one of you gets pushed back. Either the attacker goes back an inch, pushes the opponent back, but the attacker stays there. The winner, I should say, stays where he is. No reform, no
Right.
pivot, nothing like that. So it's a concept you have to get used to. That it's going to take a while to wrap your head around if you
And it
playing
does
a game.
mean that it's very much you got to think about your maintaining your battle lines because it's easy for an aggressive player to send a unit out by itself and all of a sudden it's got exposed flanks
Right.
and it's in trouble. The or to cause a hole in your line where people can now wrap in, and roll you up. So um, in that case, it is you don't just build the uber unit that goes around killing everything. It's really more of an attrition type of game where you wear things down and
Yeah, definitely.
try to do the 1-2 punch as opposed to just smash.
Smash something in a single
Yeah.
phase.
So the mechanics, generally speaking, they're all very straightforward. The Yeah, I mean they're all pretty straightforward. Everything's D10s and it's just combinations, and you're trying to roll hit numbers. There's no
Yeah.
stacking of rolls to worry about. There's not a lot of the rules are pretty straightforward, even though the rule book is quite thick, as you can tell by the page numbers on here.
Yeah, I think it's 180.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the rules themselves. There's a lot of drawings, and you can see there's a lot of
Almost every other
blank
page in the
pages.
rules is a picture,
Yeah,
or probably every third double page.
because
is
it's
pictures.
Osprey, they have all their little artwork they have to show you.
Correct.
So, but just by going through that reference guide that we went through, you pretty much got the basic of all the rules that you need to know to play the game.
Yeah. Well, you'd also between that and you would need
You need a
the special
special
abilities to
and
know what those
the
did
spell list if you're playing with
if you
magic.
play
And
with magic.
there's only like, I don't remember, 10 or 12 magic items if you know.
And that's true. There are a few magic items too.
Yeah, which is in the
None of
last
those
page of
look
the book.
none of them looked really appealing, but some of them looked
Yeah,
okay.
probably have to play it more to see
Correct.
the incentive for them. And then there's also scenarios. We did a play test, which we'll post, of a scenario. Or did you post it already? I
No,
haven't looked
it's
yet.
I was waiting. I was going to
Okay.
post them both
So we
around
did
the
a play
same
test
time.
scenario, for example, and it didn't matter how it was basically how many models. One of the things that was very different in that you're used to a lot of games, you have to eliminate units, or you have to get units down to 50 or 25%, and you get points for them that way. In this game, you just count it for models, which sounds scary, but it's not so bad. It's basically humans cost this many points for infantry. You may have lost it from 4 different units, but they're all the same points. So I've lost a total of 12 guys.
Right.
They're 12 points each. That's 144 points, and that's kind of how you figure out points.
Yeah, that was one of the negatives. I thought that was going in. I thought that was going to be a negative.
Yeah, I thought it was going to take us forever to figure out the points, and it's like, oh, this actually is pretty fast. So, which I kind of liked it in because it gets a little annoying sometimes to me with some games. Oh, I just have to kill 2 more figures to get the points for that unit.
Right.
So you're doing this mathematical computation instead of playing the game.
Correct. And it's
And making
also
weird decisions at the
yeah,
last turn because
you
it's all about
to hunt down that single figure that's left of a unit
yeah,
and try to wipe it rather than hitting a unit and causing 4 or 5 casualties to another
right,
unit. It's that's a big difference.
yeah. So that was different, and if I remember correctly, there was 2 scenarios. It didn't even matter if the casualties didn't matter. So they do different things with
Right.
objectives also.
Yes, some of their scenarios, holding the ground was the most important thing, and if you did it, you won,
Right.
even if you barely survived it.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so yeah, that was it. I was a couple things that bugged me about it. Reading the rules at least, and that was the capped unit size at 20,
Right.
but that
For infantry,
for
cavalry is
infantry,
10, and
cav is 10, and
monsters I think is
monsters are
3.
even
Right.
less. I think are they 3? I think so.
Yeah, I think it's 3
For
for
the
monstrous,
monstrous
and then
infantry,
monsters are just of course single. Yeah.
correct. Yes. That kind of worried me a bit. Turns out not to be that big of a worry at all. I actually kind of liked the way it played. The set unit sizes, again, like I said, kind of bugged me, but it's okay. The next thing that really bugged me was the units. There's no equipping units. You buy a spearman. That's the spearman unit. The only thing you choose is how many guys are in there.
Right. I think there was
Simple.
one magic item you could put on the units.
I don't recall seeing one
I thought there was one. Okay.
because I don't think any unit had a magic item as a special ability. Maybe an elf unit
Ah,
could have. I don't know. I don't recall.
yeah.
But that's the kind of thing. I mean, so it like I said, it's generic in some ways, and that scared me at first. Looking at the stat lines, we saw them; they were 1 point off. But during the play, the difference between the orcs and humans actually seemed to manifest itself
Yes.
and come out in the game.
It's like because it's only 1 pip on a D10, but I'm rolling 5 of those.
Right.
So
It matters.
it does matter, and winning by 1 is winning. So
Right. What else? I do like the way that I really like the way the spells work in the game. It speeds the game up compared to what you do in a normal game where you spend some time deciding what you're going to do. Your opponent spends some time deciding what he's going to do. Is he's going to try to stop you? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's that, and you're working with a dice pool, so you're thinking, well, I'll use 3 on this, and 2 on this, and 4 on this. No, this game is cut and dry. You've got a level 3 caster. He casts 1 spell on his activation. He rolls 3 dice. He either gets the spell by rolling the number above or doesn't. Simple.
well, you still can have that decision if you've got a level 3 because you've got multiple spells because you can only cast 1 spell
Right.
a turn.
He does. There is a decision of what spell he casts.
So that
But
matters. The one thing that can slow the game down is because it's I move. It's not a I go you go. It's I move you move I move you move. So it's an initiative system. Um, I can see that making the game take a while, because you can very easily get, oh, do I want to move this unit and activate, or do I want to move this unit and activate?
Correct.
Oh, I have a commander that can move 3 guys. Do I want to move all 3 with? So you can. There's still things, and I think that's where, if it's going to slow down, where people become indecisive, and every game has its indecisive positions.
That's where it
That's
is in this
where
game.
it's going to be in this game.
Correct. Because
It's
you've
not
got the thing going over on the right hand side of the board. It's like, oh, I really kind of need to get that unit moving, but
right.
no, if I do that, then he can do over here,
Right.
and
Because you do everything with that unit. So you
right,
might be shooting, you might be casting spells or whatever, and they take effect immediately. So it's not, oh, I kill some guys. Whatever guys you kill aren't going to be able to affect you back. And when they
right.
initiate their action.
As far as shooting
Right.
or spells go,
Exactly.
combat. Once you get in combat, you hit each other. You roll your dice. He rolls his dice. You remove casualties after that.
Right.
Everyone's in effect going at the same time.
But
So
now another unit could come and charge that exact same unit.
correct.
2 initiative rolls down ways down the way.
Right.
And now it's already been weakened from the previous combat, so you have a better chance of hurting it.
Yeah. Although the chance, again, with the units backing off of each other, there's a strategy in that as well. Because
Yes.
if you win the combat, the guy, and you only back up an inch, well, you're not going to get charged if you have a battle line.
Right.
You're not going to get hit again.
One,
Meanwhile, if you push the opponent back 6, now you've opened a gap for somebody to get in.
right, if you have the movement together. Now the other thing is getting used to the line of sight is, I think, a big deal,
It is.
because it's from the commander figure in the center. It's not from the corners of the unit. And how you determine
How you determine flanks is harder for me.
It's easier yet harder, and it seems a bit odd, to be perfectly honest, because basically you draw an imaginary line from the back corner to the front corner across your units as an X, determine flanks and fronts. What that kind of means is, as you get thinner, your flank is reduced.
As you lose ranks.
As you lose ranks, as you take casualties, your flank is
Right.
smaller. So that's kind of
Which I guess could be, as a smaller unit can react better, therefore his flanks are
I mean,
smaller.
you can
If you want to justify
you can
it.
rationalize anything, but we had one combat that the first unit hit, the second unit would have been in the flank, but he lost one too many figures, and all of a sudden it wasn't in the flank. It's like,
Right.
okay, so it's kind of a odd.
It's an odd mechanic.
That's an odd mechanic to me. And most of the other mechanics are straightforward and they stack on themselves well. That was the one odd
Right.
thing that
Rather than just basing 45 off the corner guys,
yeah,
which I anyway is much clearer for me,
Right,
rather than you're
right.
having your, like you just mentioned, having your flanks fluctuate.
right.
Get narrower and narrower.
I also didn't like how certain war machines basically were on turrets.
They are, but it's a -1, which we did not use.
But still, it's still a turret.
But it's still a turret.
You know. But I wasn't a fan of that. I thought, like I said, most of the spells were. I think to me, a lot of the spells were meh at the most.
Correct.
Some seem really good when you first read them, and then you play them. They're okay. They're not as much as I thought they were. But timing spells correctly, certain spells correct, like I was using that mud spell.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the game, I was just casting it just to cast it, just because. But
Right.
but early in the game, I think it made a difference.
Correct.
Because basically, I put this trench in front of 2 units, and it slowed his advance down. And there's like this spell called smoke, which you can do, and there's these area effect spells seem quite powerful. But once again, all it takes is to have a decent mage on the other side and go, I'm going to dispel that now.
Yeah, I tried it. You put the mud down. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's going to be a problem. So my very next activation, I activated my mage, tried to use the spell, failed. But had I been successful, basically I just countered you,
Right.
and our 2 mages did nothing this turn.
And the big thing is you really have to think about your level of mages, because the spell casting,
Right.
I think the lowest was a 4 and the highest is a 10. Where you think, I need to roll a 10 on a 10-sided die,
Right.
and your highest
Well,
level mage is a 5.
Well,
That's still not a fantastic roll.
yeah, 5 chances at a 10.
Yeah, so, and there's a lot of 9s in the game, so you really need to have those higher level mages, which are very expensive, to get some of those spells off.
Correct.
And Dispel, I think, was an 8.
Dispel's an 8, if I
Yeah.
remember
So,
correctly.
and I had like a level 2 guy. I tried to dispel half the game. I didn't get any of them because it was just too much to
That's
roll
a tough number to roll on
on
two
two
die, two
dice. It
d10s.
is,
I mean, it's a
and
30% sure per die, but that
so
doesn't add up and make it 60,
right,
unfortunately.
yeah. So it's just, and since you pick your spells, though, I think that's kind of neat. You have to think about how you build
Yes.
your mages versus what spells you give them.
Yeah, if you want a couple spells that cast on a 5, you can take a level 2 mage,
Right.
or take a level 1 and get it, 60% of the time.
Yeah.
You can take those chances. But if you want to reliably get, or not, maybe not reliable, but if you want to have a decent chance of getting an 8 off, you're going to need at least a level 3 guy.
Right.
Probably
And
more, but
and then a level 5 is like 400 or so
yeah,
points,
it's a crazy number of
which
points.
is now if I remember correctly, they say an average size game is 2,500 points, and I think we paid
We
2,000.
played 2,000.
So, 2,500, 400 is a lot of your points if you
Correct.
think about it. Now, when you think of an infantry guy costs maybe 12 to 20 points each. I was worried that there won't be that many troops on the table with these rules because I really like to see
Correct.
lots of
Yeah.
troops, but we had a decent amount of
We had a
figures.
decent amount. I had 3 blocks of 20 and a smaller block of like 8 or
Yeah,
so.
I think I had two of 20 and one of 10 and one of 15 and
Yeah, a
two
couple
cavalry
cav
of
units, and
10.
I had a
Yeah,
small cav unit as well,
yeah.
and
So
catapult.
you
And
still get a number, and depending on how you build your army, that's up to you. Also, as I mentioned, so you have decisions to make on how you build things, and yeah, like I said, we've only done the one play test, and so
but it did go off. Definitely went well enough that we're definitely going to play again.
yeah, yeah,
We're going to give it a couple more shots and see how it goes. So far, I've been encouraged. Like I said, I'm very encouraged with it.
yeah, yeah. No, and so it's definitely a game. I really believe that you could get beginners involved, and they could play the game and have fun. They may not win, but they're going to have fun.
Right.
Um, that's the challenge with some games. Are so complicated that beginners just feel like they've been punked if they try to play the game, or they're overwhelmed with all the rules.
With all the rules, correct.
Because we showed you like this page of the specials. There weren't that many, and they're minor things anyway. So,
Right.
um, and they tend to only apply to certain types of units or certain armies or whatever. But yeah. So overall, I thought the game, and we'll talk about the game when we do that review. But the rules, there's a lot of pages. They could really use an index. They don't have one,
Right.
which is somewhat annoying. They do have a table of table of
Context.
content
Okay.
to put it into context.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and
They did the other thing they did that I kind of liked is they give you an example of a combat.
yes,
They say, here's the combat rules. Here's a example of a combat.
yes.
Here's shooting. Here's an example of shooting.
I did think they were a little light on examples. I would have liked a few more movement examples. For
Movement,
example.
for example.
Yes.
Yes. No. Movement. Movement. They did seem to be a little weak on.
Yeah.
Yeah. The maneuver, pivoting, wheeling thing was a little weak as far as their examples on that.
Yeah, and just explaining that the double actions and giving more examples of double actions, I think, would have been helpful.
Right.
But it's just not that complicated. But it's just for a beginner player.
Yeah.
But yeah, but
and
this said,
those things are, you know, happen when you've got people who are writing rules that they know they play all the time. Your system. You know all the time. Oh, this is simple to me. I don't need.
right.
Everyone will pick this up.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
One of the things that I think bothered you a little bit, but I really liked was you can make the terrain really slow, have an effect on the field.
I did not like the terrain. It took me back to 5th and 6th
This
edition
Warhammer,
Warhammer.
right?
Is that if you get into a woods with a good sized unit, you're not coming out for a while.
You could potentially be there a while.
Yeah.
And I like that because it made the terrain. You can anchor your lines on it, and there's there's a special ability where certain troops can move well in terrain.
Yeah, like a nimble, I think.
A nimble, right? So it brings back light skirmishing archers and things of that nature, which in like Kings of War or in Ninth Age really have no role except to get killed.
Correct.
You know,
It becomes what's called chaff.
Yeah, chaff or points denial.
Yes.
So it kind of brings back some of I remember the old time games, where skirmishing units kind of had a bigger role. It wasn't just to die; it was actually to annoy and stay alive.
Right.
So I kind of like that, and um, how the slowing down movement mattered a lot. You had to think
Yeah, it
about it.
did kind of worry me.
Yeah.
It still does a little bit, so I haven't gotten over that one yet.
Yeah, well, you do have to be careful too, because they tell you how big the terrain's to be. You can't be putting out, 2 foot by 2 foot woods and
Yeah,
saying it's difficult.
they do not limit sizes.
Wasn't there a thing about? I thought there
I don't
was a standard
I don't recall them having a standard
piece.
terrain
Okay,
size,
well,
but could
well,
be.
we'll have to come back in the comments. I thought they said something about that.
The yeah, which again doesn't bother me because you and your opponent should agree on that type of thing
Right, right.
when you're building your list. The other thing is in the general rules and in their rules, they I'm not a big fan of mixing the humans with the elves with the dwarves. Taking a little bit from each unit, each army, each race, whatever.
Right.
Um, Simply because if, in a game that you play for, I don't know, if you're playing it in competition or something like that, then well, everyone has access to everything, and then whatever turns out to be the absolute best is what you had. Well, elves are really good at this, so I'll take one unit of that to do this.
Right.
Dwarves have this, which is really good. So I'll take a unit of that for that.
Yeah. Now, in theory, the points are supposed to even that out. Whether they do or not, that will take time to determine.
I'm going to say no on some things.
you know. But I don't. I tend to agree. There's no lore in these rules, so you don't have a whole background of a world that they've created like you
Right,
do in the Warhammer world or in Kings of War or 40K or whatever, or Tolkien. There's you
right.
you use whatever the heck lore you want, and the game designer, he's done some videos you can find on the Osprey site, I think, and it talks about that. So he wants people to have total flexibility. So you're gonna have to decide, if you like the rules, if you want to play them out. And
Yeah, I think.
the two of us are in the same mindset. We like to have kind of more pure armies.
Yeah. So each army has kind of more of
Has
a
a
feel to
flavor
it.
and has
Yeah,
a
a flavor.
feel, has its own unique feel. So
Yeah, that War Gods of Egyptus kind of did that same thing, where you could take certain units of your general predicted your guy,
I
but
forgot all about those rules, even though I buy the miniatures all the time.
but they had that same ability. It's like, oh, everybody can take the crocodile troops.
Right,
Everyone can
right.
take this.
Yes.
Um, anyway, I'm just not a fan of that. Just what it is.
But yeah, but
If
they
you
give you like,
are, great, enjoy it.
and I don't like there's this concept of building a kingdom and building your armies in your kingdom and stuff. Seems a bit convoluted to me.
It turns out it's kind of it's a basis for a campaign system is what
Yeah,
it comes down to.
it is. And that's how you build your kingdom is what you're limited, what troops you can take, and
Right.
how many of each type you can take, and all of that. And that's the other way is you just play the points like we did and pick what you want
Pick a point total and build to that.
from one of the list types. So
Right.
we'll probably
Um,
stick with that.
I think we'll probably stick with that.
So the next supplement is coming out, supposed to have like elite units, but
Which is more of a campaign thing.
yeah, it was just more of a campaign of adding battle honors
Right.
and some additional rules on terrain, river crossings, and things of that nature. Then there's
It
supposed to
said
be
some boats as well.
in
That could be
boats.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it could be intriguing how they do. I'm curious.
Yeah.
And then this set is hard backed, so it's good value for money. You get a hardback with lots of pictures. The next one, it looks like it's going to be a softback. And then there's a third one that's supposed to come out. It's not on the Osprey site, but it was on the Osprey site, but now it's not. So I'm not sure
Right.
what's going on there. Where I think they introduced the undead.
Right. Which adds a fifth race, which is
Right.
good.
Which we'll see at least one more, maybe.
Yeah. And if
So,
that does well, what's to stop them from doing
yeah. And I can see that bothering people because people like to have, the rules that have like the 20 different races they can choose from and 600 monsters. And
Yeah, it's hard when you first come out with a system,
yeah,
though.
and this game doesn't do that. You're limited in your races now. So if you want to play your elves as evil, you just say they're evil. They're not different than the ones that you say are good.
Correct.
And maybe with which spells you take gives you a flavor. But so things of that nature. Same with your dwarves. Dwarves are dwarves. There's not evil dwarves or good dwarves. You pick.
They're
Same with
just dwarves.
humans and I guess orcs and goblins
Yeah.
are always the same.
I
So
mean, if I do humans, I have to do an all-mounted knight army.
there you go.
Simple as that.
Because you have your Equitane, which you can do.
Yeah. And, I have burned all my Equitane peasants, so
Yes.
there'll be no foot troops now. I do
Yeah.
have a few.
Yeah.
But that's I mean, that allows you to do that if you want to. So,
That's it. You can build your own however you want. Like human, you could have an archer army. You could have a cannon, a catapult army. They're limited in their war machines, and they're limited in their monsters. Now,
and the war machines are generic, kind of generic.
generic. Each race has their war machine. Now, because it doesn't matter that much, I don't. I think you can just do whatever you have on your base. You have on your base.
What do you mean?
There's a catapult. Well, if you have a mortar instead of a catapult,
correct.
So what? It's the Empire heavy
Correct.
artillery
Heavy
piece.
artillery
That's all that
piece.
matters, or the Empire light artillery piece, based on
Right.
what you have. So I don't think that is as important.
No.
If you have, some monstrous infantry models like little mini treemen or whatever that you like to want to use them all. There's nothing specific that matches to those. But if you're playing elves, you go, well, these are these guys.
Right.
I think you can proxy in that regard because you're limited based on the
all on the base size.
yeah because of the base size and everything else.
Now I ran trolls in mine. They're supposed to be on 50 by 50s, but I ran them on 40 by 40s
Because you want to cheat.
because I was cheating. Doesn't make a difference. They didn't cause a single hit in the entire game. Anyway, we'll get to that. You'll see that if you care to watch. But yeah, it was. I enjoyed playing. I think it's got promise.
Yeah, I think so.
Again, strategy wise, it's going to take me a while to wrap my head around the fact that the biggest difference for me is what happens after a combat.
Yes.
Combat, win or lose, what happens after a combat to me is what's going to take a while to wrap my head around.
Yes, and there's no alpha strike.
Correct.
It's not. This move will win me the game. That just isn't going to happen here.
Yes.
Unless it's the last turn.
Yeah. Now spells, like I said, there's a couple spells that still worry me that are in here, but one of the ones that worries me the most, we didn't play, so neither one of us used, so I don't know how that's going to come into play.
And you had one that
I had one that I
pretty much won the game for you, but
yes.
It's because I happen to have the troop type that was
correct, affected by it most.
Affected by it the most. So
right. Now, had you been playing elves, that spell is trash.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Anyway.
Exactly.
But anyway, that's just the kind of things you have to play a few games to learn. And
yep.
The way it looks, this game will be getting some playtime from both of us.
Yes, it looks that way.
So, and maybe drag some other our people into it as well.
We'll see.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. I mean, it's an alternative. It's currently I don't see it as a replacement. I just see it as something different as far as, a fantasy battle ranks and flanks game.
I do think it equates itself better to multiplayer play.
Multiple people on the side, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, but the move unit
because of the initiative.
Yes, correct.
There might be a little, jabbing about
who gets
which sides. Am I going to do it? Or are you going to do it? But there's nothing you have to do weird with allocation of dice or anything like that to figure things out. True.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's it. If you have any questions, post them in there, and we'll answer them incorrectly, I'm sure, because we don't know much about this game at this point.
Exactly.
But try it. Give it a shot.
Why not?
It's worth the one. The rules are fairly cheap. I think the rules were what? I don't remember. $35, $40 for the set of rules.
I think it was $35
for a nice printed book.
Yes. That you can stick on your shelf. And if nothing else, you got a nice paperweight.
And you can stick it on the shelf and have some nice pictures inside it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.